Gavin is already on our park board, and he is active in American in Bloom and things like that, so it's a natural for you to be on the urban forestry as well. So you can entertain a motion to approve that appointment.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Hydrich, seconded by Pettit, to approve the appointment of Gavin Woolley to the Urban Forestry Council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the appointment. Thank you. Thanks, Gavin. Gavin's here tonight as well. Thank you for being here.
Tonight, Gavin.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for being here.
Public hearings, special use permit 921 West 5th Street.
John, they should be.
So this is going to be the Sal show now. All of these items were at planning and zoning this past, or last
Yes.
Monday, right? So,
We had 8 items, so they're all on your agenda tonight. So this
Okay.
first one is a special use permit for a short-term lodging, Airbnb, VRBO, is more commonly known at 921 West 5th Street. As we've been seeing these more commonly be requested. This is just 3 houses west of the High and 5th Street intersection. You can see here, the property, actually I'll go back, in this arrow you can tell it does have a shared driveway with the neighbor. So it does have off-street parking, but you can see that driveway actually does cross the property line and is used by both property owners. It's zone R1B, single-family residential. It is just west of, right at High Street. Everything is R2 overlay for the 2-family. As you get over here, it's single-family residential, but this is, again, a residential use in nature. They're just asking for the ability to do lodging anything less than 30 days. This is just a map of our existing lodging. All the yellow dots are where they're at currently. There is one a block and a half to the northeast here. And so you can kind of see that is the closest, but here highlighted is where they're requesting it. So this went to planning and zoning last week.
You know how many total?
We have 34 registered, but I do not think they're all active. So you can register them and they stay on our list. And then if you don't get it re-inspected in June, it becomes inactive. I believe we have 28 active. So, but this went to planning and zoning last week and was approved unanimously. So be happy to answer any other questions you have.
And for you guys, there was only one person here that was concerned about parking.
Correct. Yep. Someone across the street. So it does have off-street parking, but from use, I mean, our parking requirements are the same as any other residential. So.
Any comments or
rental,
questions?
long-term or not. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to address the council on this item? Okay. Any other discussion by council?
Make
If not-
motion, send on.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Hydrich, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you have accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 921 West 5th Street as a vacation rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the ordinance that follows the previous item. Any questions or comments? Okay.
An ordinance granting a special use permit to utilize 921 West 5th Street as a vacation rental in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Reed,
Yes.
Pettit,
Yes.
Solentrop,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Scornia.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Rezoning 4255 Highway 47.
We're here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is this TV working or not?
When you said it, I mean, yeah, I know it. But it just seems like it's-
I know it wasn't working the other night.
Don't screw up the big one. I know.
All right, just leave it alone. We can turn around.
It's like, oh, I'll touch it.
Yeah. All right. So the next item tonight is a rezoning request for property at 4255 Highway 47. This is the 7 acres just south of what used to be a church, and now the school district owns. That's where they have their meetings and have some classes there, I believe. But this property here is in the city limits. It's at the southern boundary of our city limits there with access to Highway 47. So just so we're clear, there are 2 requests pertaining to this property tonight. The first is a rezoning to bring this property into the C2 General Commercial District. That's the first thing you're voting on. The second is a special use permit for self-storage units at this facility. And so our code requires all self-storage units to have a special use permit when it's in a commercial district. The only time we allow them outright is in industrial. The other ones we have are in actually commercial districts. They've either been grandfathered in or have gotten the special use permit. And so for the first request, the zoning, again, this property here located off the highway, it does have shared access with the school district, so it's kind of hard to see here because it actually follows this line on the aerial, but there's a 90-degree turn to the north. That's where the school district property comes in, so it is a shared access there.
Is there still a residence there?
There is a building there. It's unoccupied.
Okay, thank you.
So again, here's the current zoning. You have C2. That's what they're requesting directly across the highway. This is where the mobile home park is. The school district, it actually has what used to be C4, now is our planned commercial. I guess when the church went in there, that was the zoning they requested at the time. The property is still zoned R1A, single-family residential. It does have a corner that backs up to Town and Country Industrial Park here, and that industrial, and then this greener color is actually anything that's not annexed, so it does not currently have a zoning. One thing I do want to point out, our comprehensive plan does have a future use map, future zoning map, to show as we grow for the next, we do this every 10 years, what we anticipate as properties were to be developed, what their most appropriate zoning would be. This is what was adopted in 2013. You can see our boundary has not changed. This right here at the intersection, or right where the city limit line hits Highway 47, you can see this property is in our comprehensive plan as C2 general commercial, so or as commercial in general. So what they're requesting is in line with our comprehensive plan. So before I move forward with the rest of it, just on the zoning aspect by itself, without talking about the use, we do recommend approval. It follows the comprehensive plan. It has access to Highway 100. Any future plans and that are going to require improvements to that will have to go through us in MoDOT, so we have the wherewithal to review that to make sure it's as safe and meets city code. And then again, Planning and Zoning reviewed this last week and voted unanimously to approve the rezoning. And
Their plan there to rezone it and do what?
it'll be self-storage, which is what's the next item on the list. So this is just for the zoning, and then their next item is for the self-storage.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
Make a motion, send it on.
Okay, we'll need a public hearing. So this is a public hearing, so is there anyone who would like to address the council on this item? Okay, any other comments from council members?
Well, we can move things on.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Hydrich, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance rezoning 4255 Highway 47 from R1A Single Family Residence District to C2 Overlay General Commercial Zoning District in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the ordinance that follows the previous item. Are there any questions or comments? Okay.
An ordinance rezoning 4255 Highway 47 from R1A Single Family Residence District to C2 Overlay General Commercial Zoning District in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Reed,
Yes.
Pettit,
Yes.
Sullentrup, Hydrich, Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Scornia.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Special use permit 4255 Highway 47.
Alrighty, and so simultaneously on this property, the applicant is requesting the special use permit for the self-storage units. You can see there are 6 buildings proposed that are actual self-storage, traditional kind of narrow buildings, and then 1 warehousing facility here. And then in the bottom left, you can see a rendering of what that would look like. They are proposing to utilize that access off of Highway 47. We'll kind of get into the details of that here in a second. But as for the use itself and what we're showing here, they are proposing adequate parking for our code. Our code requires, based on the square footage of this, a pretty minimal amount of parking because, as you know, with this use, people come in, pick up, drop off their stuff, and leave. For the indoor storage, there's some spaces that are required that you can see here if they were to have any employees or people who are accessing the climate-controlled facilities. So they do meet our minimum requirements in parking. As for this western boundary here, you can see a pretty decent buffer. There's about an acre of buffer here. That you can see the contour lines, that's actually a creek that runs in between their property and the neighborhood to the west. But it does meet, they're preserving the buffer, and then they actually have some of their own landscaping here. So they're increasing to the buffer as well. So that meets our minimum requirements. They do show fencing around the property. Otherwise, it doesn't have a detail on that, but I will tell you with the commercial to the north and the commercial to the south, now that south is not annexed, but our comprehensive plan has it as future commercial, we wouldn't require site proof or a screen fence. I do believe that the neighbor spoke with some neighbors last week after planning and zoning, and they do plan to have some type of slat there for privacy in there. But it was not something that staff saw as a condition of approval since it wasn't residential to the south. As we get a little bit further into this, there are some things that staff, this went to site plan. As you guys I'm sure are aware, every Thursday all of our departments get together and look at any permit that's been submitted. And so we review stormwater, fire, planning, building, anything in there, and we compile our comments. So we do that on not just planning and zoning issues or issues that go before council, but any building permit. And so these were some of the comments that we got, that we collected from that. And when we brought to planning and zoning, there are some changes or some clarifications, I should say, that we're requiring for this as conditions of approval, but it wasn't anything that we thought should require them to table the use or wait for them to have a more finalized site plan, because, with all honesty, staff reviews these weekly on non-conditional use permits. We actually are able to look at these and make sure that they meet all the minimum requirements before we issue a building permit. But some of these things we will make sure before we issue any building permit. The first one is approval letter from MoDOT that can be one or two things. That MoDOT says, yep, that's an adequate access, or MoDOT says you have to do XYZ traffic study. Some type of approval to improve that access. It will have to be widened. The second is with that access from MoDOT, they're going to have to do something to the grade into there. The applicant, and again, they're here tonight. I'll try and recap anything that was said at planning and zoning, and then they can add to it. But with the grade going into there, their own customer trailers, we're going to have issue with that. Our fire department was going to have issue with that, so they'll have to adjust that grade before they can get a building permit to make sure that it has proper fire access, and that's part of that second condition here, the fire department approval. They'll have to show on a final site plan, fire hydrants, that the radius here and the fire lanes can be met, that sort of thing. They'll have to finalize that. And lastly, the stormwater and utility approval, extending having stormwater retention, extending water and sewer. Those will have to be shown to our building department as well before it can move on. But again, that was all. Those were all items that we felt staff could review in-house, as we do with all other commercial permits or industrial projects, and that the actual use and what they're asking for tonight is for the special use permit for the self-storage units is adequate. And so staff recommended approval of this with those conditions. And again, this went to planning and zoning last week, and it was voted unanimously for approval for the special use permit.
Sal, had you identified those conditions already before it went to P&Z?
Yes.
Okay.
So this list was on there on the staff report beforehand, was shared with the applicant, and so they're aware of all of these. And
I would just add a lot of those conditions are part of your building code and codes anyway when we review projects. So they're
the
just
ordinance is
explicitly
it's a
set.
little redundant, because even if I put that in the ordinance tonight, even if it wasn't actually in there. They would have to do that anyway. Everyone has to do these things. But I just wanted to make it clear that to the applicant, to the neighbors, to council, that this site plan will have to be finalized, but as for the special use permit, we are comfortable moving forward.
Are there any other questions or comments?
All right, thank you.
Okay, excuse me, this item is also a part of the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to address the council on this item? Please give us your name and address.
My name is Bo Reinberg, 7018 Maryland Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. So I am the applicant on this development, and appreciate everyone's time. And first off, appreciate Sal and the city staff. It's really, we develop self-storage across the country, and the process here is really second to none as far as efficiency and kind of outlaying everything for us. So it really is a good process. We're excited about this opportunity and this development. I mean, we know that self-storage doesn't always get a round of applause from planning departments or city councils, but the fact of the matter is households and growing communities really need our use. And with the onset of COVID, what we've found is that the use has increased significantly. People are decluttering their house, finding a room for an extra office or work from home, and that's where our use really comes in. And so, prior to COVID, it was death, divorce, and displacement that really motivated the use of self-storage. They're not real fun things to talk about, but it's the facts. And now it's decluttering that has kind of taken that fourth pillar of why it's important. The other thing is that as communities grow, specifically small businesses, self-storage becomes really kind of an extension of last mile logistics, because where else can you find 500 square feet on a month-to-month basis to store extra materials, extra what have you? It's a very tough thing to find in all communities, let alone growing communities that may not have warehouse space that can accommodate such things. So rarely can you sign a one-year lease for 2,500 square feet, or 500 square feet. So our use really becomes, again, an extension of that small business growth. And obviously with the residential and business growth in this community, we feel like it's a great opportunity for one of our developments.
Any questions of Bo?
The picture looks like it, but I just want to confirm, no outside storage, correct?
No boats, RVs, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thanks, Bo.
Yep.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Okay, so need a motion,
Send it on.
accept into the minutes, so second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Reed, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance granting a special use permit for 4255 Highway 47 for self-storage units in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the ordinance that follows the previous discussion. Any questions or comments? Okay.
An ordinance granting a special use permit for 4255 Highway 47 for self-storage units in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Solentrup? Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Voluntary annexation, Coke Farm.
All right. The next two items are two different annexation requests. This first one is an annexation request from Vic Horsehamp, who has bought 10 acres here of the Shive Farm. Coke Farm was all kind of part of that. I know, as many people are aware, there was a big auction on this. Vic did just buy a portion that I have highlighted here. It looks like two parcels, but that's a section line that the county had drawn, so this is one piece. Tonight, they're just asking for approval of annexation and the designated zoning, and then they'll come back later. Actually, just today, I received an application for a preliminary plat, but tonight we're just looking at the proposed zoning. So as you can see here, not currently in the city limits. This is everything that's not zoned. Everything you see hatched here in this color is R1D, single-family residential. That is the zoning district that allows for 7,500 square foot minimum lots. I will tell you 90% of the homes that have been proposed since we've introduced that code, that's what developers are asking for. That's what buyers are wanting. They're wanting less land to take care of. And so that is what they're requesting here tonight. So they're requesting to bring this in as R1D, single-family residential. Again, it matches exactly what you have here. And then just for clarity, that's the same developer, Vic Horsecamp, who did these to the north. So you have a very similar product. Again, just looking for the zoning tonight and to bring that in. This will be on planning and zoning preliminary plat in January.
You know if they have any plans to connect Baker Road with this development?
Well, so again, I just got the application in, so we haven't had a chance to really review it. We have an RCOMP plan, Rabbit Trail going to Beaker, and then they have a road here. So we're working with them on how to best connect those two.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Would anyone like to address this item in public hearing? Okay. Entertain a motion to accept into the minutes.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Scornia, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance annexing 10.15 acres of property located along Beaker Road in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Introduced by Councilman Hydrich.
I have one
Oh.
comment. If you look at Section 2 of the ordinance, it says pursuant to the provisions of Section 71.012 RSMO, that should be 71.014.
Pay the big money. Okay, did you get that, Sherry?
I got it.
Okay. All right. So you're ready to do a roll call, right?
An ordinance annexing 10.15 acres of property located along Beaker Road in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Reed,
Yes.
Pettit,
Aye.
Sullentrup,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Scornia.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Voluntary annexation, Waterman Farm.
Alrighty, this is the second voluntary annexation for the night, and this is actually, the applicant is 353 Redevelopment Corporation. So you guys already know what quasi-public organization that deals with our industrial development. Back in October, the end of October, we purchased 115 acres here at the Waterman Farm for the Richard Oldenburg Industrial Park. So the next step is just to annex it in to M2 Heavy Industrial. You can see here that's what the rest of the industrial parks are, and I didn't have it in this slide. I apologize. Our comprehensive plan does have the Waterman Farm as M2 Heavy Industrial as development continued, industrial development continued. So again, this matches the comprehensive plan. It's only logical now that that's why 353 bought it in the first place for industrial development, that is the appropriate zoning. So what you see also there is the original map did have all of this in there because that was the tax map. We only bought 115 acres. So the legal description that is on your ordinance and that was published in the paper excludes the 25 acres there for the homestead. Just to be clear, that came up at planning and zoning. That is not being annexed. That is still staying outside the city limits, but we're annexing in the 5 acres on the north side of the highway and then the remainder of the property that we bought. And I apologize, I forgot there's a new state statute, so this one will also have to make that amendment.
And the new statute, if you want to explain that, or it's,
Let Mark.
Yeah, under the prior statute, you had to have a public hearing, and then you had to wait 15 days before you could pass an ordinance approving the annexation. This statute allows you to have the public hearing and pass the ordinance the same night.
okay,
So it speeds it up by at least a couple of weeks.
okay. All right. Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council regarding this item? Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion to accept into the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Pettit, seconded by Hydrich. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you have accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance annexing approximately 115 acres of the Waterman Farm as M2 Heavy Industrial into the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman
And
Holtmeyer.
this one, Sherry, you need to make the same change in section 2.
71.014.
Yes.
An ordinance annexing approximately 115 acres of the Waterman Farm as M2 Heavy Industrial into city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Reed,
Yes.
Pettit,
Aye.
Solentrop,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Scornia.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Citizens' comments?
Is there anyone here who would like to address the council tonight?
Yeah, I would. Mike John, 610 Robert Street. I know the pavilions aren't done yet. They're working on all that stuff. There's been some concerned citizens about the deposit of $500. Is it going to increase? It seems excessive. You're outpricing a lot of people in the city just to rent a pavilion. I'm renting a hotel room a couple $100, and they're just going to keep $100 to make sure the room's not tore up. My question is, are you going to raise it, or do you think that's excessive, the $500 deposit?
I can answer the first question for you.
Cool.
They're not going to raise it. I mean, there's not a proposal to raise it.
Okay, that's cool. Do you think you're pricing some people out of the market? Somebody just had it for their graduation. They were saying almost $700 you got to lay down. There's a lot of people that can't afford that. Does anybody think that's excessive? Or you don't?
Well, you get the 500 back, right?
Yeah, bud, but not everybody has 500.
You get it back from the deposit.
You may have it, I may have it. There's a lot of people can't take their kids to the park, rent that out. That's all I got to say is I just want you to look at it and think maybe we ought to lower that a little bit. So,
Okay.
no other comments?
Just a clarification with that, Mike. If they rent the facility, that's only if they want to reserve it for their own use. Anybody can still go ahead if it's not being used and use it for free at any given time.
Right,
Just want to make sure that.
right. So any given time, but if you want to reserve it for a graduation party,
Deposit.
a birthday party, or anything like that, which a lot of people do. That's all that concerned citizens wanted to know, if there was lower that or even think about it. But it's kind of a huge amount of money. So
So Mike, what are you asking as far as the rental or the deposit?
the deposit, the rental, the citizens don't have any problem. They just think it's very excessive, $500. And you're pricing out a lot of people that can't. That's all. And I just was curious to see what you guys thought,
Eventually it comes back.
or want to address it sometime and maybe lower it some. So I just wanted to bring it up and let you know what citizens are thinking.
Well, in
Okay.
the city's case, if a person does something to the pavilion, $500 probably don't cover the damages that are occurred. And so that's the reason for the $500. You got city employees, got to fix something, there's a couple $100 in a day's labor to fix whatever is wrong. So if a citizen puts out $500, they're going to really want that money back and they're gonna really take care of the pavilion. That's what the high,
Oh, I understand it, bud. I do.
that's why it's up so high.
That's why it's so up so high. So only the rich can use
make
it.
sure
I understand
that
what you're
they-
saying.
Take care of the facility
So-
when they run it.
I understand that.
Okay.
But I can understand what you, the way you think. Yep. Cool. Anybody else? Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Report of department heads.
I just want to brief council, on the 4th Street, Fair Street project. Fair Street was paved by the deadline that was granted with that initial change order. There is some ongoing minor retaining wall work that's occurring, but for the most part, the roadway was open by that deadline. They've also transitioned to Huxell Drive to do some concrete repairs. Sunnyside Drive also had some curb and gutter repairs as part of that contract. Those two corridors will also be paved in the spring. And then 4th Street over here, as you can tell, the curb and gutter was replaced on this first block actually today. So they're moving right along. I haven't heard anything very negative as far as traffic control, those things, but we'll keep you updated. I know wintertime construction can be a little bit of a struggle, but we're working with them.
They did a nice job around the shoe factory.
Oh, and I'm sorry, the shoe factory was completed as
They
well.
really did a nice job around there.
And the shoe factory too, just, and I briefed Darren on this, it actually was widened by about 18 inches on that shoe factory side. I know there was concern when the shoe factory was initially brought forth of the narrowness of 2nd Street there. So we actually were able to widen that by about 18 inches, just to give a little bit of.
Oh, good.
Good deal. Thank you.
Anything else, John?
No, ma'am.
Is that it? Okay. Is there anyone else? Department heads? Okay.
Ordinance resolutions, an ordinance accepting the sales contract from Truck Centers, Inc., Troy, Illinois, and to approve the purchase of a 2023 2-ton dump truck with snowplow and salt spreader and amend the 2021-2022 budget by the City of Washington, Missouri.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Good evening, Council. This is a replacement for one of our 2007 model snowplow trucks. The current one, it only has 35,000 miles on it, but the salt and the weather has taken its toll on it, unfortunately. We will be reselling it with the salt spreader and the plow, and we'll probably make a good amount back on it. We budgeted $152,000. The truck came in at $165,000. Unfortunately, with the steel cost, everything seemed to have gone up on us, so we are asking for a budget amendment on that. That's about it.
This is with the bed and everything. This is the
This
spreader.
will be, with the
everything.
spreader, the salt spreader, the plow, and the bed, yep. We are buying this off the MoDOT state bid. And we did price it, some comparable trucks, Mack trucks and Internationals, and they all seem to be about the same range. So,
Anyone else with a question? Okay. Thank you, Tony.
all right, thank you.
An ordinance accepting the sales contract from Truck Centers, Inc., Troy, Illinois, and to approve the purchase of a 2023 2-ton dump truck with snowplow and salt spreader and amend the 2021-2022 budget by the City of Washington, Missouri. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Solentrop?
Yes.
Heidrich? Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a 5-year sales contract by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Exxon Enterprise, Inc. for an unmanned aircraft system drone program.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Evening, Council. You should have a letter here. It's a joint letter from the Washington Volunteer Fire Department and the Washington Police Department to enter a drone program. This is a discussion that's been going on for almost a year when we review equipment that would be of use to the safety and security of the citizens of the city. So the fire department and the police department work together to look at a drone program. We've researched it. Fire department's assisted in all the steps. Through the program, we've looked at Axon because Axon has the sales contract we need. The software that we would use with the drones for the drones and the cameras We currently have that software in our body cameras and our in-car cameras. It's compatible software, so for evidence collection, on evidence tracking and chain of custody, all that software is compatible. When I say safety and security, safety, it would be for fire scenes, for inspecting fires, looking for hot spots, and Chief can jump in at any time he wants to. Be for rescue. So if we have someone in the water, let's say on the river, their drone or the drone that they will maintain or keep at the fire department is a very large drone. It has a carrying capacity. They can fly out with the IR camera at night and spot someone, or with the camera they have during the day, they could be a mile away and read the lettering on your T-shirt without a problem. I mean, it's an incredible piece of machinery. They could then take a life vest or a rope out to someone in the water and drop it down to them to help them stay stable or safe until they can get to them to get them out of there. Would also be used for searching for people children that are missing and lost in the woods. We've had several calls for people, the Alzheimer's patients that have managed to get away from where they're staying. We've had to look for. In a wooded area this time of year is crucial to get to them rapidly. With an infrared camera that these drones have, they're easily spotted and you can easily zero in. For the security, if we have an escaped fugitive or we're chasing a fugitive, again, the infrared camera would help us to locate him and tell the officers and look at him and say if he's armed or not armed and where he's at. It could be used for overhead crowd views to pick people out in the crowd to make sure if there's a problem or someone's being an issue, they can be centered out. It would be used for search warrants. You can't fly a drone, an IR drone, over a house and look in a house with infrared. You have to get a search warrant based on probable cause to get the warrant, and then you could fly a drone over a house, and the purpose of that would be to see if they have a grow operation in the house or looking for persons in the house, things of that nature. The same software that we have in the drones has different modules. You can add modules in the future. We had a mapping module connected with the drone purchase. We cut it out because we were going to use it for accidents, but talking with the accident reconstructionist, an overhead view was all the drones is really going to provide us. So we didn't feel as expense we needed. So we used the total station to measure on ground. But for engineering in the future, it's a possibility they could get a module to do mapping so they could put up a drone and do an aerial of a map of an area. It'd have to be compatible with what software they use here. And like I said, the cameras, you have one drone, 4 drones total. One drone is the Air Matrice. That is kind of the drone of the industry. It reliable, fantastic technology. It will be the large drone that carries the ability for the load capacity. That drone would have a camera that has the zoom ability and the infrared. And I think it could carry about a 10-pound load to drop to someone. The next camera is a mid-sized camera. That is the Mavic 2. Again, a reliable and camera that's used in the industry. We would use that on the police department side for looking over a crowd, for searching for an individual running, or someone that's lost, or children that are lost. We could use it to enter a building. Instead of sending an officer in first, you can have a camera enter a building. And it has infrared capability to see in the dark and see what's going on. If you have someone hiding in there, it'll tell you if they, by their profile, you could probably spot a weapon. It would also be used by the fire department. They could enter in a fire building. It will see through the smoke because it's infrared, and could show them maybe hotspots or even maybe someone in the building. Then we have 2 smaller drones. Those are small, run-of-the-mill drones, good technology, but those are used for rapid deployment, so we'd keep them in a car. Someone takes off running, you pull it out real quick and throw it up in the air and go for it, see if you can find them. Or let's say we have an area that's getting hit by a lot of crime. We could put it up only in the daylight to view an area. At night, you'd need one with infrared to be able to view an area. That's also the training drones we use because they're $648. And you can crash those all you want versus the $6,500 drone or the $13,000 drone. So the smaller drones will be used in all the training. You can control a little one, you can control a big one, same type of controls. So the savings we get by doing this, we've looked at it and priced it. If we take it now and not wait until next year, January 1, all the pricing they've given us is based on some rebates and deals, free training for the officers to be trained. We would save $18,000 if I would have to postpone it and say, okay, we'll buy it after January. It's $18,000 more. So there is a savings there. The contract is for initial payment. We have $60,000 in budget, $40,000 with the police department, $20,000 with the fire department. Again, we're doing this jointly together, cooperating together, working together like we should for the citizens' sake. So that $60,000 will go up front for the contract. That reduces the amount every year, 2 through 5, that we would pay on the sales contract. So it's $8,000 something a year, $8,000 a year for 2 through 5. Concerning privacy and policy, like I said before, we can't use a drone to search a building with the infrared unless we have a search warrant. We can't use a drone to look in a building or look through windows unless we have a search warrant. Or there's an exigent circumstance like a sniper or some standoff situation. So you're limited. All the officers and the firemen will be trained. They could use any one of the drones. They'll all train across all the drones. They will have their licensing through the FAA. They'll be able to fly at night, over crowds, all those times. Also, let's say the police department were busy chasing someone, I don't have the manpower to put a drone up. We could ask if the fire department could get a drone out and put it up and assist us in locating. Vice versa, if they have everyone busy with a fire scene and it's a large scene, maybe they would ask an officer if he could control the drone because it's a full-time just to control the drone. Then the ability is to view the camera of the drone on, it's web-based, so you could view it on another device to see what the camera's seeing and direct where you need to go. Or say, I need you to look over there further. And the camera also has part of the contract cloud storage, so we wouldn't rely on any server space here in the city. Everything we get recording from these cameras goes to the cloud, is stored on the cloud by Axon. That's more secure. We don't have to worry about memory because video takes a lot of memory up. They store it and they keep it for us. We access it when we need it and use it. So again, I'm proud that we're working together, the fire department, police department, to do this program. I would hope to see us do together more things in the future for equipment purchase, so we work together and to help everyone out. So if you have any input, go ahead, Chief.
Tim?
Yes. Good evening, Council. The fire department's had a drone in our fleet for approximately 2 years already. It's a privately owned drone, but the city is actually covering the insurance on it for flying over our scenes. We've used it a number of times. In fact, the last month we've used it twice, once for a brush fire where we had no idea where it was. Flew the drone right away. We got basically the confines of it pretty quick, knew exactly where it was, could direct people accordingly. Just last week, I believe it was, we had a dementia patient walk away from a house. I know there's another drone operator in the city that lives in the city that's a firefighter in this county, big in the drone programs in St. Louis County. Called him, said, do you have your drone, your IR drone here? Can we get your drone? And yes. And so we actually had mutual aid from a neighboring fire district bring his drone. Fortunately, we found the gentleman before that, but we actually had 2 drones ready to go, one with the infrared and with ours as well, ready to fly that afternoon. Fortunately, we didn't have to use it, but the technology was there. Just this week, Boston, Massachusetts was using a drone. They had a large commercial fire, lots of smoke. They couldn't find a fire from above, flew a drone with infrared, were able to find it, direct crews, and use it very effectively. So this is a great technology. Chief Menifee, it's a great partnership working with the police department. This is how public service should work. So thank you.
How many people will be trained in the fire department and the police department?
5 in the police department and 3 in the fire.
One of our firefighters is a commercial aviation pilot, so he flies 737s, 747s. He's the one who kind of started it in the infancy for us. He is one of our pilots, and he is the pilot now that's insured and has the approvals. In fact, when we were flying in the South Point area, there was a darkened out area. I said, "What's that?" He goes, "That's the approach for Washington Airport. We got to stay out of that or stay below a certain ceiling, so we stay out of the flight path for Washington Airport." So there is a lot that goes into this. We are able to fly the river. Again, it's part of the flight path, so they'd have to bring him down in certain parts to stay underneath the approach for Washington's airport. But yeah, it's a cool technology, and these folks that do this are very well trained and very much understanding what they need to do with it.
And the firefighter that he's talking about was instrumental in directing us in the proper, this is the equipment you want, or you want this type of drone. These are the capabilities, this is what it can do, here's what I recommend. And he's a pilot and has been flying drones, so.
Are we talking about one unit or multiple units? 4 units?
Talking about a large one, a medium-sized one, and 2 small ones. Small ones being medium-sized and a large one.
Tim, I know you gave the uses a while ago. Say we had an F3 tornado come through town. Could you use this thing for like to find bodies inside buildings?
It depends on the timing of that. With the infrared, the infrared works on a heat signature, so if somebody is deceased, if that heat signature is gone because they're cooling off, I hate to say morbid, but you wouldn't be able to. But the drones are instrumental in looking at your destruction path, so you can basically get your waypoints and figure out that exact path. When a tornado's come through, you won't know. I've been to some F5 sites as it happened or right after it happened. The street signs, there is no reference to anything. All your references are gone. So those drones help give you a footprint of what's going on. And the infrareds are particularly helpful because you can start seeing where those sites are or where those spots are that you have.
So is there a wind speed when you can use it, when you can't?
That I'd have to defer back to
Depends
training.
upon the size of the drone.
As far as those bigger ones, how much are they, the biggest one, chiefs, will they be capable of lighting up a field?
If you
Like
get
the
a,
sheriff's
if you get a
department
light
has?
on them, you can light up areas. The small ones will have flashlights and
Right,
lights. So I
right.
could enter a building that's dark and turn the light on. My camera will be able to see. But it's not a
As far as a
spotlight.
spotlight, there's none of power, they're battery powered to hack all of that.
Right, and then
Unless-
what do they got, what are they telling you guys on longevity use of?
Uh,
And I know it all depends on the size, but usually that's only like 15 minutes.
It's like 20 to 30 minutes. It's not, it's longer than 15. Plus, they give you extra batteries so that you can replace the battery in the field right away and get it back up. And the drones have programming that if you get low on battery, it lets you know. And nothing else, if you don't know what to do or you lose your drone or whatever, at a certain point, it just goes straight up in the air and then comes right back to where it started from.
Flies back home.
Tim, you mentioned insurance.
Yes.
Would it be the insurance to recover on one that had gotten ruined, or?
So the insurance, there's multiple pieces to the insurance. So we went through Travelers through through Daniel and Henry, and I believe Travelers is the underwriter on it. But we went through that whole process. Part of it's liability, part of it's the coverage of the drone itself, and the computer interface that's looking at it. That's part of the coverage as well. But there's two pieces to the insurance side. One is the physical asset, but the other side of it is liability if there would be an issue. The same drone that our guy has in the fire department during that funeral for Alec, I unfortunately can't remember his last name.
Yeah.
We used the drone to actually, he couldn't give us live footage feedback because we didn't have the data connection that was good enough, but he was taking shots and sending shots back into the command post. We could see what traffic was building where, so we could formulate and adjust our plan as necessary during that event as it was happening in real time. So a couple minute delay in pictures is the most we had. The new ones now, like Chief mentions, all cloud-based. We can actually bring mutual aid drones in with the software. If we give them there's basically a code you give them, and the incident commander can actually bring up on the screen and have multiple feeds for multiple cameras at one time. So it's a pretty awesome technology.
And the contract gives us a free camera for any of them for a year. So if one crashes and burns or whatever, we get a replacement.
Do you think there's a need for 4?
Yes. The large one for the load capacity, so that you can get something to someone in the water fast. A lot faster than you could by a boat. Also, it has a little more stability for wind, things of that nature. Medium size because it gives different additives, I guess you'd say. It gives me a building entry ability. The large one you wouldn't want to take in a building. It gives me the flight ability, and it still has infrared for use at night and things like that. The smaller ones, they can go in a building with a flashlight, but they're mainly, especially for day, but they're a training drone too, so that when they crash these things, or they're using them and they crash them, it's not a big loss to have one of those. And they'll be trained. We're going to have a training day, so every officer, fire department have already picked out maybe 3. We're opening up to all the officers. They're all gonna go training day and train with a drone. And then the trainer, who is Scott, is gonna tell us, yeah, he's good, but I wouldn't have that guy fly a drone.
Maybe I ought to go down to Ace Hardware and get those $20 ones, bunch of them first.
They won't last long, and they'll crash, and and a good wind, and you're done.
Part of this is actually being able to fly a fairly long distance, and then the large one, to answer your question, Dwayne, the large one is stability. We got to have it in those all-weather conditions, and that's really the reason for the large one, and that's why we're getting it, plus the load carrying capability. The medium-sized one, obviously, the police department will have that, and that way they have an infrared one in their arsenal. The smaller ones, as Chief said, are training ones. So that's the reason for the small ones, but the big one, the large one, there is a definite need for both. Both departments internally have infrared capability. We have a little bit, with the fire department, would have a little bit more capability than they would, and they don't necessarily need that capability in a day-to-day environment, that bigger drone. And it gives them the ability to fly in a building, so they can go into a high school if there's an active killer situation and fly a hallway, or go into a big box store and be able to fly that store and do that with that smaller unit and be very efficient at it.
If nothing else, we can crash it into the guy, so.
Anyone else with questions?
What is the total cost?
The total for the 5-year contract is $92,000. We're putting 60 up front, so that reduces it for the yearly payment to $8,057 for year 2 through 5.
Is there any kind of grants or anything we can grab a hold of?
Not right now.
What was your question?
Grants. If there's any grants out there right now we can grab a hold of?
But we're talking 90,000 for 5 years?
5 years.
And part of that's your data storage as well for your video storage.
It's anytime you get involved with software and maintenance of software and licensing, you're talking, that's where they get you to spend money.
Well, anytime you have new technology, and we've all been through death, and if you could save one life, it'd be way worth it.
I look at it as if I can keep one officer from being shot because I know a bad guy's in there, it's worth it. If they can save one life because they see somebody in a fire and they know where to go get them, that's worth it. Or find someone on 27 degree in the woods at night to save them and keep them from hypothermia.
But it keeps, the other thing too that I like about it is we can actually go to the bridge, fly the drone off the bridge and go down the river. Because we get a number of calls for random things in the water. And if I don't have to put a boat in the water, particularly at night, particularly in high water, to investigate that without putting our guys in the risk, we should do that. And that's one of the things that I really like about this particular drone is that we have the ability to do that and not put our folks in harm's way as well.
And no, we won't be spying on people or things like that.
But when this came up, when I read it, I was against it. But you guys did a good presentation.
We will have,
Kinda like
the fire department will have policy, we will also have a policy. I have a model policy from International Police Chiefs about drone use, and it covers when you don't use a drone, things you don't use a drone for.
Do you know if anybody around the area has them now?
Franken County does.
Yes, Sheriff.
Franklin County, Baldwin Police, Ellisville Police, Monarch Fire Protection District, all of those have them. Manchester Police have one. They did a 9/11 memorial starting in Manchester and ending in Wildwood, and they were able to put drones up at major intersections and actually connect them all up to one feed. And so as this procession went through, they were able to actually connect all of it as a big mutual aid workshop. And every time you fly the drone, it's a mission. And so that all gets recorded and captured. So there's traceability in all of this as well.
Each pilot gets hours of flight and missions. So. And we've asked to use Sheriff's Department's drone before. We usually have it resolved by the time they get it here to use it, so.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Ready?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a 5-year sales contract by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Exxon Enterprise, Inc. for an unmanned aircraft system drone program. Reed?
Yep.
Pettit?
Yes.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a lease agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Washmo On the Go LLC.
Introduced by Councilman Scornia.
Items 7C and 7D go together because they're both, D is the contract for the improvements for Waterworks building. However, prior to that, we need to make sure that we go ahead and approve the lease with Washmo On the Go. I think this has been in the hands of the person that's going to lease the building for quite some time, and so she's aware of it, and after going back and forth with Mark's office, we believe it's ready for your approval tonight. Obviously, it would have to be executed before we would move forward on the contract for the Waterworks, which is the next item, 7D.
Any questions or comments?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a lease agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Washmo On the Go LLC. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and SK Contractors for the Waterworks Building Alterations Project and amend the 2021-2022 budget.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
So this is for the building alterations and what we need to do to go ahead and get it occupant ready for the Waterworks building. This is after reviewing the bids with Horn Architects. We opened bids, I should say, on November 30th, but after reviewing those with the Horn Architects and staff, we are recommending SK Contractors for the base bid and alternates number 1 and 3. And the total for both of those with the base bid would be $478,600. Your capital improvement sales tax has budgeted $370,000. The remaining portion of the contract would be covered with your downtown TIF funds, because these are exterior improvements for the building, and that's within that district area. So,
Is this a prevailing wage job then?
yes,
And we keep records of all that?
yes.
The contractor's required to maintain.
Right, but I mean, we have someone checking on those.
we're not required to, no.
We can.
We can, but we're not
We-
required to.
On roadway projects, we do. Typically, it's a federal situation, but just so you.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of an agreement by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and SK Contractors for the Waterworks Building Alterations Project and amend the 2021-2022 budget. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Cochran for professional engineering services for the Second Street reconstruction and ADA compliance project and amend the 2021-2022 budget.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Good evening, Council. 2 administrative operations meetings ago, we have a presentation about a downtown improvements package that we were trying to put together. Basically, a schedule about how we were going to attack reconstruction of the pavers, the intersections, 2nd, Main, and Front Street. If you're aware, Front Street actually has an 80-20 federal grant to be constructed in 2025. So trying to figure out how we were going to attack these things. The sidewalks, the pavers, those things are not currently ADA compliant. They do have some maintenance issues. They were put in the 80s. We felt that starting on 2nd Street would actually be better because we could then establish a construction timeline and figure out essentially what worked and what didn't work. So when we go to Main Street, which is obviously the more concerning one for I would think for most of us, that we know and we have that at least under our belt, that experience. So we've asked Cochran to assist us in that. Engineering did complete the survey. We did do that, but we did feel that with the phasing and the work required, that'd be better use if we had somebody to help us out on that. What we do then is engineering staff then utilizes their own resources to go after some streets that aren't as complex as this one. So this would be the design fees and the construction inspection cost. Andrew did give you a cover letter in there, $99,178. That work would start immediately. We'd work towards try to get design done by the summertime, bid it this fall, or in 2023 fall, and then or 2022 fall, and then start construction in January of 2023. Initially, we feel that's the best time to start this because you can do a lot of concrete work into things in the wintertime, come right out of wintertime, pave the streets out, and we felt that would limit the amount of disruptions in the downtown area. That January through April timeline is really our window. So
you're talking about using pavers on the street and using concrete for the ADA appliance?
Well, I'm cautious to nail down exactly what we're going to do, but we do feel pavers at the intersections is actually a pretty good use. I mean, they've been in place since the mid-'80s, and I'll say I was the first a little skeptical, stamped concrete, those type of things. But as I kind of dove into it a little bit, stamped concrete has its own issue, that if there's utilities work that needs to be done underground, you'll never get those things to match color. So pavers, you can pick them up, remove them, do your work, put them back in. So the crosswalks, it'd be very similar to what you see here on Jefferson Street, just without the bump outs. They will not have bump outs. They will not have bump
Say it
outs.
again, John.
They will not have bump outs. They will not have bump outs. So it's it'll have that look, though.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a contract by and between the City of Washington, Missouri and Cochran for professional engineering services for the 2nd Street reconstruction and ADA compliance project and amend the 2021-2022 budget. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Heidrich? Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Yes.
Scornia?
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance establishing a sewer lateral infiltration elimination program in the City of Washington, Missouri.
Holtmeyer.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
I know at the last admin operations meeting, I went through this pretty quick. But what this essentially is, it's one tool that we developed to aggressively go after infiltration and inflow into our sanitary sewer system. We are making great progress. with slip lining, replacing of sewer lines, things that allow water, stormwater that comes out of the sky into our sanitary sewer systems. We're doing really good with that on our own infrastructure, but remember, there's 6,800 homes that are connected to that situation as well. So what this was, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, other charter counties have sewer lateral insurance. That is not what this goal is. The goal is to provide some assistance to remove and replace your entire sewer lateral from your home to the main. When I see a lot, we're getting about 20 to 25 sewer lateral permits a year. The vast majority of those are spot repairs, so where you literally just take a section and repair the part that's bad, the remaining part remains in place. Or I see a lot from the home to the back of the sidewalk because the expense to go into the street is too great, typically between $8,000 and $10,000. So what we looked at doing was trying to figure out, okay, 40 to 50% of what that is to get that spot underneath the street repaired. How do we do that? And that's where this $4,000 program would come up. There's a checklist. You have to have a city business licensed plumber. You have to provide photos, video evidence of an issue. So it's not a proactive thing. You have to show that you're having a problem with your sewer line. That's another thing. You have to invite the city into your home to ensure that your downspouts and your sump pumps are not connected, because that's part of that inflow. Pumping stormwater into sanitary causes us a lot of issues. We do expect to see a savings at the wastewater treatment plant. To tell you what that number is, I'd be lying to you, so I don't know. But we do have to treat any water during wet water events. We are aware that we do have infiltration issues within our sewer system, and we just feel this is one of the bigger tools that we can use. It'll be paid for out of the stormwater fund, which is unique. It's not a user fee. Your sewer rates are not going to go up. It's just creatively using a different funding mechanism that has some money in it and investing in that infrastructure. So that's what this program does.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, John.
An ordinance establishing a sewer lateral infiltration elimination program in the city of Washington, Missouri. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Solentrop?
Yes.
Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance accepting a bill of sale for the dedication of a water main by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and the Magnet Group.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Midwest Military Equipment, which is the neighbor to the Magnet Group out in the Chamber Industrial Park, is doing a building expansion to the rear of their property. They realize that the Magnet Group has a fire line, a water line, a fire line, 8-inch fire line that loops around the building. That fire line is currently private. It is not owned by the city. We do not maintain that fire line. It is not ours. So rather than, thinking outside the box, rather than cut the street up to get to the opposite side of the roadway, have added expense, we did some inspection work on the fire line and are wanting to accept one section of that looped fire line for public main. It's already a water line. It's already connected to our system. It appears to be built to our specifications. It would just take that in for public ownership. It would extend a main, and then they would tap into that. They do have to pay tap fees, just like any other development. But what this does is just takes over a piece of existing infrastructure.
Are you saying it's a fire line for, in case the building catches on fire, that's when it's energized, or is it energized all the time?
It's energized all the time. It's a loop fire line around the Magnets building. So
Okay.
it goes, roads here, it goes all the way around. What we're proposing to do is take over one leg of that for public main, which allows this new user to tap into it for his use. So it keeps water kind of circulating, and then it really lessens the expense on them, and then just keeps development kind of going.
Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
An ordinance accepting a bill of sale for the dedication of a water main by and between the city of Washington, Missouri and the Magnet Group. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Solentrop? Heidrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance accepting the minimum improvements for maintenance for Hanover Plat 2 in the city of Washington, Franken County, Missouri.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Okay, Hanover Plat 2, say 6-lot subdivision located off 9th Street. Last week, we did receive signed and sealed as-built of that. The builder is looking to get occupancy to move forward with occupying the homes that were constructed there. They've established, or they've given an estimate for construction costs, which establishes the 20% maintenance bond that will be held for 2 years per city code. That number is $9,453. We have completed the inspection of the infrastructure. Any SWIP items, any sediment control items, those get addressed with the builder, just like any other project. So we feel comfortable to accept those items for maintenance. That also allows Tony to plow the streets.
Okay, any questions or comments?
An ordinance accepting the minimum improvements for maintenance for Hanover Plat 2 in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Solentrop?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance amending the provisions of Chapter 335, Schedule 2 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri by adding provisions for a stop sign at the location described below.
Scornia.
Introduced by Councilman Scornia.
It's fairly standard ordinance document. What this does, we are required by the state to add the stop sign locations in our ordinance. Staten Drive, which is in the overlook, that was accepted a couple months ago, actually. The stop sign's been in place, but it's a catch-up item. Mason Close Road, again, is in the overlook. It would put a stop sign approaching Staten Drive from the north. And then there was another one, West Pride Drive on West 5th Street, has had a stop sign there, I think, since it was constructed. Somebody brought to our attention that the stop sign was either taken or removed or for whatever reason. So we brought it to the traffic committee and decided that one should go back up there. And then we recognized that it did not have an ordinance for 20 years, whatever it is. So we're going to get it caught up.
Good idea. Any comments or questions? Okay.
An ordinance amending the provisions for Chapter 335, Schedule 2 of the Code of the City of Washington, Missouri by adding provisions for a stop sign at the location described below. Reed?
You bet.
Pettit?
Yes.
Solentrop? Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for Edison Brothers subdivision in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Missing it?
All righty.
Introduced
So-
by Councilman Solentrop.
Sorry about that. This is a proposed boundary adjustment. Says for the Edison Brothers subdivision, that's the name of the plat. This is the Rawlings plant off Westlink Drive. I'm sure as many of you are aware from their announcement earlier this year, they are doing a pretty substantial expansion out there, which we're very pleased about that they're expanding in Washington. Part of that, with the expansion going to the northwest corner here, they need to make a boundary adjustment. And so this looks kind of goofy here, but it is a very large lot. So you can see these are the new property lines that they're putting in here for the expansion. It still has access, and the reason for this width here is that this property to the rear, if it were to be developed, it could have a driveway all the way into it, or long-term, if there's ever access to the rear, they could have a road cut through if they need it. But that's the boundary adjustment they're requesting, and we recommend
fire
approval.
lane?
What's that?
That's not a fire lane?
No, I mean, the building's coming off, you can barely see the building here. The building's gonna come off of here, and the fire lane goes around like that,
Okay.
so.
How soon are they going to?
The plans are in, they're
Plans are
waiting
here and
for this to
everything?
get done.
We have the
and-
plans?
yeah.
Okay, good. All right, any questions or comments?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sal.
An ordinance approving a boundary adjustment for Edison Brothers subdivision in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Reed?
Yep.
Pettit?
Aye.
Solentrop? Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer? Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Commission, committee, and board reports. Preliminary plat approval, Winters Brothers subdivision.
All right. On your agenda, actually, the next two items are preliminary plat and final plat for this subdivision. As I'll get into, there's actually no public improvements required for this. And so they are able to get the final plat tonight. But this subdivision, the Stumpy property as it's formerly known, is in between 2nd and 3rd Street here. So here's Olive. So this is a downtown adjacent property. It's not Zone C3, but our downtown district that we just amended is actually on this lot here. And so it is 2 parcels here. They are proposing, well, let me get to the zoning first. So this property is zone R2 overlay, single-family residential, or single and 2-family residential. So that overlay allows for single and 2-family uses. If it is single-family, that means it has to have at least 6,000 square feet in the lot. If it's 2-family, they have to have at least 12,000. So the plat they're proposing here, sorry, I'll point out this too. I know this is an area that comes up a lot with flooding. This is the floodplain. So you can kind of see here this eastern lot does not have really, just a corner of it is in the floodplain, and then this western lot here, obviously about half of it is in the 100-year floodplain. This here, and you can see the floodplain lines are on here as well. They are proposing 2 lots on 3rd Street. These are under 12,000 square feet, so these will be single-family residential automatically. And then they're proposing 3 lots here to the north that will access 2nd Street. Each one of these is larger than 12,000 square feet, so they could do 2 units on one if they wanted to. And with the width of those lots, they wouldn't necessarily be able to do a traditional duplex with a shared wall. So the applicant did mention at Planning and Zoning last week that it would be kind of a one-up, one-down situation, which really is what you see in R2 overlay. The whole point of that district, that overlay district, when it was created, was to allow for all of those 2-unit apartment units we already had that were, so you had single-family, 2 units, they were all there, so.
Is that a floodway you were talking about, or just high water level there?
It's high water level, so this is not floodway. This is
So
floodplain.
Still build there?
That's an area where there's not a floodway established. So if they were to construct there and do some work, they'd have to provide a hydraulic analysis and things. But it's kind of a loaded question, but it's possible.
Yeah. So you can see here that, you know, this lot is really the only one that would be significantly impacted. They'll have to submit some hydraulic study to engineering and all that, so. And this did go to Planning and Zoning last week, and they voted unanimously to approve this, so.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments?
All right. The applicant is here tonight as well.
Does the applicant own more land there other than what they're showing us?
That would be a question for Mr. Winters.
Mr. Winters, would you please come up? And state your name.
My name is Walt Winters, and I've got a home here at 410 Stafford Street in Washington.
Okay.
And what was the question?
The question is there adjoining land to this right here? Do you have more land?
I've got.
Is that it?
I own other properties in Washington, Missouri.
No, I mean right there.
No, that's all. My brother owns Brick Inn Bread and Breakfast across the street.
Okay. Okay. That was it.
Okay.
All right, very good. Thank you. Did anyone else have a question of Mr. Winters? Okay, thank you. You've been very patient tonight. All the way at the end here. Okay, any other questions from council members? Okay, we'll take a motion to accept this, or?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Hydrich to approve the preliminary plat and accept it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've accepted that item. Thank you.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Winter Brothers subdivision in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer. This is the ordinance that follows the previous item. Any questions or comments? Okay.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Winters Brothers subdivision in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Reed?
Yes.
Pettit?
Yes.
Sullentrup?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Aye.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Preliminary plat approval, River Place subdivision, Plat 2.
My last one, everyone's last one. This is the preliminary plat approval, so this is actually only one item tonight. I'll get into it. There is some improvements they have to make before they make a final plat. But these are the 2 parcels here. They're going to be cutting up into 6 parcels. This is directly to the rear of Zickfoss and Polite law firm. This is the old Franken County Recycling Center. And actually, this was recently rezoned as part of our district when we revised our downtown district. You can see this is actually where it cut south. So this was originally zoned industrial still from when it was a recycle center. So actually, I think this proves with the amendment of our borders, this actually released some hurdles and let the developer come in right for a plat from the get-go, which is kind of what we were hoping for with that. And so, again, this is zone C3 that does not have minimum lot size and does allow for 0 lot lines on setbacks, just like all the other townhomes you'd see at Ryan River or on the other side of Front Street. And so they are proposing 6 lots here, 6 townhomes, starting at Olive and then heading east. You can see here, this one is a little bit larger because they won't have a 0 lot line on this first lot because it's a corner, so it'll be built back. They do have common ground here for the driveways and then this ingress egress here for the fire lane to the rear. So this did go to site plan already and they reviewed it, and our fire department has reviewed it and knows that this plat does allow for adequate fire access. So here is a very early preliminary sketch plan of kind of the site plan. Obviously, they need to make some amendments to this, but I did want to point out they have shown, because we do require a special use permit if you want to do 0 lot line now at the intersection. That was a recent change. They show a corner here being cut out, so this will be a 3-car garage, and you can see here so that site distance triangle will not be an issue. They have this one cut in a little bit, so it's not a 0 lot line on this eastern side because of the retaining wall and the hill going up to Bleckman's, and this is less than 150 feet. So a fire truck could pull in and back up. So again, this meets all the minimum requirements of the plat plan, of our preliminary plat, and even though this does have adequate access, and you would think being infill, it doesn't really need any public improvements. Water and sewer does not run down Main Street right now, so they need to run it off of Olive down to the rear. And so they will have to make some, either put those improvements in, or they can submit the plans to our engineering department and get a performance guarantee up with a final plat.
So on C3 corner lots, what are the setbacks?
So it's still 0, but if you want at an intersection, four-way intersection, you have to get a special use permit. And that's just for the site triangle. And so if you can show in your plan that you aren't interfering with the site triangle, you do not need a special use permit. And that's a brand new rule from 2 months ago.
That was put in place because of the market and main situation. You know,
But I think you just said a 4-way stop, and that's not.
A four-way intersection, I'm sorry. Four-way intersection. Yeah, because that's actually what made Market and Main become a four-way stop, because we didn't review it beforehand, or didn't have that rule beforehand.
Correct.
We did review it.
It's a good.
But this went to planning and zoning. They approved the preliminary plat, and then Andy has mentioned at the last meeting that they're finalizing the construction plans. And as soon as we get that in, we can either do a performance guarantee, or he can go ahead and lay the lines, the water lines. So.
Do we have water and sewer close to there?
It does run down Olive.
Yeah.
It just doesn't quite go back to this last lot where they would need it.
Yeah, when Rhine River was put in, there was a water line extension down Olive to supply that, because it was, I think, a 2-inch main at the time. So water runs right down Olive. They just have to stub over and run it east to connect every one of those parcels as it goes east.
So that plat you see here, all these lots to the west would then not have access to water if you only allowed it off of Olive. So they basically need to get a public line down this ingress egress
Wouldn't make it different.
to get all 6 lots.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay,
So this will just be accepted into the minutes.
all right.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Solentrop, seconded by Pettit, to accept and approve this item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
Mayor's report.
I just want to wish everyone a very merry and joyful Christmas. We've accomplished a lot this year, and it's It's been a big year for us. So anyway, so thank you all for your service to the city of Washington. And certainly enjoy working with you and appreciate all your efforts. So thank you very much. Have a very, very nice Christmas with your families and friends. So thank you.
City Administrators Report.
No report.
Council comments.
I saw on this, I guess it's the agenda for the Historic Society, 306 Lafayette. Is there
Yes.
plans for taking that building down?
Yes. Yeah, so that, we had historic preservation right before this. When there is a proposed demolition in the historic district, we are required to meet in person. Historic preservation can review via email for signs and awnings, but they reviewed that today. The applicant did come and they issued a certificate of review for demolition. So as soon as as soon as the building department issues that, 306 Lafayette will be demoed.
And it's the smaller.
It's the home just adjacent to All Pro, thank you.
Right.
And
Building
so,
goes behind the
yes.
home.
Their warehouse kind of wraps around it right now, and they said it's not salvageable, really, and unfortunately, since it's outside the TIF district, we don't really have any incentives to offer to save it, so there wasn't really much historic preservation could offer to help save it, and so they issued the certificate tonight.
So, did they say what the plans for or what?
A parking lot for their trucks.
The applicant, actually, when she came to my office to apply for the demo permit, I remembered she has to go through historic preservation first. They are looking at potentially utilizing, or asking you all to go into an agreement with them to utilize the concrete parking lot for Grace's Place, just to have a laydown area because it is on zero lot line. I don't have anything drafted or proposed yet, but that is probably going to come before we can issue that demo permit. I do think it's wise that we work with them on it just because it's a pretty busy street and there's not a lot of room to work there. So working together probably is a good concept.
The only other thing I got is out on Highway 100 today, it was terrible. I know the street, or the Parks Department, whoever was working out there on the median, I was backed up all the way to Fish Street on 100, and I didn't get any calls, but I think that this is the bad time of year to be doing something like that
I did get a call.
during the holiday season here. I mean, I know that it's busy, everybody's home, I think, this week for Christmas, and maybe next year we could probably program that a little sooner or later.
We'll talk to Wayne.
Thank you.
Gone. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Solentrop, seconded by Pettit to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
By
you.
your vote.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome. Enjoy.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Enjoy.
Executive session.
I know. It's been a while since we haven't had one of those.